Morning. Today we're looking at the question, where does the I originate? The sense that I am, the sense that I am separate, the sense that I am unique, the sense that I am a being. Where does it originate? And is it actually the truth? It's a very convincing feeling. Now, in the Buddhist view, of course, one of the main things about the Buddhist view is that it's saying no self. There isn't actually a self there. Now, what it means by that is that there isn't a substantially existing separate self. There isn't an independent entity that is self-sustained, that is self-perpetuating. If we look at the self, where there is a strong sense of self and there is a dynamic of the self, but it's not independent and it's not substantial and it's not real. It's as real as everything else that exists in the dream. So this sense of I, where does it originate? How does it work? And the great yogi Ramana Maharshi discovered an incredibly simple way to come to the answer, because we don't want another set of ideas, because they're kind of confusing and they don't bring us to the reality of what is anyway. His suggestion was, and his clue was, that the source of your breath, which is something that gives you a tremendous sense of individuality, doesn't it? The breath unites our body, the vehicle, with consciousness and keeps us in space and time. Without that, without the breath, we disappear into timelessness, we lose our individual sense of self, and the dream disappears. So the breath is the source of our sense of being a separate self. No one breathes your breath, and your breath is the dynamic that keeps you all together, keeps all the different levels of being together. And also what makes us fairly convinced that we are separate individuals is our thoughts. No one has your thoughts. And so what Maharshi is saying is that if you follow your thoughts back to where they actually arise from, this sense of I, you will have a revelation about the true nature of I. If you follow your breath back, which also gives you the sense of being separate and individual, you will also have the same realization. So the breath and the thinking arise from the same place, and they are the causes of our sense of having a self. And he mentioned a technique which is incredibly simple, but actually works really well when we're trying to find the origin of the I. Where is it? Where does it come from? How does it work? So in that technique was simply just to go I, and take your consciousness to what is happening. Take your attention to what is happening as you simply say that. And if you keep going with it, without any expectation or without bombing it with thought, and you just keep going, I, you'll start to find that it vibrates in the heart, that it all comes from the heart. And when we come to that place, in a minute we'll sit and we'll do it for some time, but when we go into that place, we come out of the mental realm, we come out of the psychological self, and we enter into pure being. We enter into the realm of the witness. We go beyond the intellect and come into the domain of the witness. And the witness is the source of I, and is the source of our point of view, our unique point of view. And when we come into the witness, what we realize there, amazingly, is that there is an interface between awareness and consciousness. Consciousness, there has to be an I around which is to have consciousness around it. It's not just floating in the air, it's something has consciousness. And when we bring that consciousness, which is a temporary phenomena of the I, when we bring that to itself and then to awareness, we realize that the truth about us is that the I, the sense of I, originates out of awareness, and it's a function of awareness in the form of consciousness. And it temporarily creates a separate or a platform where we can objectify and look at things, and where we can be a subject of what is happening as well. But the truth is that what is unchanging is the awareness. And the sense of I, there isn't actually an I there. There isn't actually anyone sitting there. It's just a temporary sense of I. Now the Atman is what you find when you go back. It's what makes you breathe is this incredible, could you call it a thing, a dynamic, like a light that burns without drawing from anything, self-effulgent. And it's a miracle. And that Atman is also linked to the Paramatman, the awareness, the supreme, the unbounded. It's a phenomena. So a phenomena cannot be real. A phenomena has a beginning and it has an end. A phenomena has a cause. So this is a divine principle, you could say, of life that allows us to have cognition, that generates something to have cognition. So it's quite complicated what I'm saying. So let's just try getting to the origin of I. The first thing we have to be clear about is that we're not talking about the I as in I, who your name is, the part you play in this life. We're not talking about your body. That's not the I we're talking about. We're not talking about your personality. That's not the I we're talking about. We're not talking about the roles you play. Oh, I'm a father, I'm a brother, I'm a this, I'm a that. We're not talking about that. We're not talking about the I that has momentum through space and time of having experience and working it out and processing and so forth. We're not talking about that I. We're talking about the essential I, the divine principle manifest at the core that causes breath to come from which we think, the observer. So let's try this method, see if it works, that Ramana Maharshi suggested. So you settle, become still, and with your eyes closed or with your eyes open, but if your eyes are open, fix them on a point and intend not to blink. So find a fixed focus, relax, become present, and all you need to do is just say the word I and notice what happens and where it happens and what it's leading to and what it points to. It's subtle, but you're capable of that subtlety and much more. Okay, so let's just try. I. You can say it out loud or you can say it internally. I. What you'll notice is, or what I'm noticing is that immediately my attention is being pulled out of my mind, my brain, my mind, and it's coming down. Carving the way back. You keep doing this, and keep doing it, and after a while you'll start to feel something, and if you do it for a long time you'll feel a lot. It's a very powerful technique, hiding behind a very simple form, but it's actually very, very powerful in terms of bringing you back here to the point that you witness from, to the point that your breath arises from, to the point that your thought arises from. The things that give you the sense I am. I am the witness. I am this point of view. But if when we come to this I am the witness, that's the doorway into the great I am, the great awareness, which is completely beyond the world of dreams, unchanging. So keep going. I. Notice what happens. Don't make anything happen. Just notice what happens internally. If you keep doing it, there's a kind of burning that starts to happen. and you start to move back into the heart. Because we have poured our consciousness out into the world and out into the many levels of our mind. And this technique and others draw you back so that you can bring all of you back, just as you would do if you were in a deep dreamless sleep. There's no consciousness in a deep dreamless sleep. It's all been brought back into the cave of the heart. And the trick is to be able to do this while being awake, to bring all of you back, back, right back to the seed, I. And this then, on the level of experience beyond thought, shows you the truth about what the I is and its relationship to unchanging awareness, and the distinction between consciousness and awareness. Consciousness has to have an I that is conscious, but in awareness there is no I. Awareness is like the river, the massive river, the Ganga flowing, and the I is like a ripple or a swirl in it. The miracle of the divine principle can only be experienced. It has extraordinary aspects to it. But we can just I. The I helps you keep your attention on your mission, which is to come out of the conceptual realm. All the ideas that you've had still haven't brought you to the place where you are, where you truly are. So we need to leave that for a moment and travel back to the core, which is the sense I am. And in that place, in the cave in your heart, where that sense is, that's where the divine principle that causes you to breathe comes from. And that's where your sense of self, which produces your thoughts, come from. And that's the source and the home of the witness. When you reach the witness, then the awakening is there. The awakening is the perception of the self as the witness, and the connection of the witness to all that is. Because even then, the final stage is the letting go of that I and returning as boundless awareness. Keep going with the I. To have this work, you need to be able to let go of your current sense of what I means. Because as long as you're identifying as who you think you are, there'll be suffering. You'll no doubt be suffering, fluctuating between not being good enough on the one hand and being super special on the other hand. And filled with complexes and habits and psychosis and crazy thinking, which leads to suffering life. We're not going to try and fix that. We're just going to try and see what's behind that, what's deeper than that. Where does this notion of an I come from? You look at animals, and quite often you can really see that they don't really have a sense, I am separate, I am unique, I am special. They are separate in their body, but they're part of a resonating field. And that shows us something. Any time that your mind is too loud, just do this exercise. When you're not doing anything during the day, when you're walking about, when you're doing housework, when you're going from A to B, when you're in the supermarket, when you're driving, this is an exercise you can do. And it has very beneficial effects. Even doing a little bit. I don't know if you felt anything just doing it while I've been talking. But even a few moments, and you remember, and the experience comes of what is prior to thinking, what is prior, what is before the persona, the source of this sense I am, the place that the I originates from. I. This is not the I, we're not looking for the I that is selfish, or the I that has qualities, or the I that is generous, or the I that is, well, nothing like that. We're looking, it's behind all of that. The simple sense I am, where all of your consciousness and all of your experience, where does it actually originate from? The I is like the pure drop, and the awareness is the ocean. And that drop can dissolve ultimately, hopefully while you're alive, into the ocean. That actually we can let go of the sense I altogether. But first, to find it. First, to come to that cave. When we come to that cave, it becomes much easier to let the breath slow right down and perhaps stop for longer and longer periods. And these timeless moments, the truth of awareness unfolds as an experience, or as what actually is. It's not really then at that point even an experience, because that implies an experiencer, the experience and the person having it. But when we come to that deep place, there is just what is, life itself. It's said self-cognizing, meaning that it's not a subject looking at an object. We've gone beyond that, and there just is what is, pure life, pure intelligence, inconceivable wonder that generates, operates and destroys all that is, yet remains completely unchanged. And we are that, ultimately. I. Pulls us out of the mind, pulls us out of thinking, pulls us out of false identity, pulls us out of ignorance, and brings us into the heart. And that's where the revelation is, the revelation of the I. That's where it is. When we find this, our need to identify as anything else dissolves and dissolves and dissolves. We no longer need to identify with our past. We no longer need to identify with our ideas about ourselves. We no longer need to identify as the part we play. The ego falls off by itself. There's no need to smash and destroy the ego. Sometimes you hear of that in India, people going to ashrams and being put through terrible hardships to smash their ego. You don't need to smash the ego. Unless who you're being that the ego is means that it has to be smashed. Well, don't be that way, because it's grueling. It's horrible. It's damaging. You don't need to do that. When the self is recognized, when the witness is who you become and who you are, even for a moment, from that moment your relationship to the ego has changed. And the more that you discover this place of just witnessing, of just pure presence, the ego is no longer needed. And it dissolves and falls off, and insights come, and you become free of it. And you come to the I am. And this is a wonderful place to arrive at. And each day needs to have some time in this place. So I hope that this has been helpful. Maybe it has, maybe it hasn't, but I hope it has. And this video will go up on my YouTube channel, Timian Talks. And I'm also doing one-to-one. If you want a one-to-one with me live or online, then we can do that. Just let me know. I do that on a donation basis. If you have anything that you want me to talk about, let me know. So, have a wonderful day.